Well, look what we have here. Katsuhiro Otomo's very own Akira. Ah yes, the landmark film in Japanese animation. A film so highly praised that it spawned numerous anime fans during the 90s and garnered critical acclaim for its stunning visuals and its philosophical and controversial elements. And I'm ready to give this movie a piece of my damn mind. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say that, I don't mean that I hate the film. In fact, I think Akira is a decent movie. However, I'm going to go ahead and say that this film is one of the most overrated movies I've ever seen. Yeah, I know, shocker. But there are some valid criticisms that I have with the story itself. So for all of you who are reasonable to hear me out, allow me. In 1988, a massive yet mysterious explosion occurs, destroying all of Tokyo and plunging the world into World War III. Approximately 30 years later, the city of Neo-Tokyo, a reconstruction of the old Japanese city, is created in the landfill of Tokyo Bay. We are then introduced to a youth biker gang led by the brash yet outgoing Kaida Shotaro as they battle the rival clown gang. During the biker struggle, the runt of the group, Tetsuo Shima, who is also a close friend of Kaida, has a fateful encounter with a small fragile child, one of the three mysterious children who seem to have a connection to the mysterious being known as Akira, who is said to have been the cause of the great tragedy from over 30 years ago. After being taken away by the Japanese military, it is discovered that Tetsuo was developing extraordinary abilities that began to change his well-being to the point of insanity. Kaida meets up with a woman named Kei, who is a part of a revolutionary group that plans to overrun the government, and thus we are thrown into a massive four-way battle between Kaida, Tetsuo, the military, as well as mysterious children, as Neo-Tokyo is thrown into chaos. Story and characters. I know that there was a lot of information that I gave out, but there is a reason for it. The movie Akira is of course adapted from the original manga. Now, briefly talking about the manga, I have no issues with it. In fact, it's probably one of the best manga series I've ever read. Translating the 6-volume epic into a half-hour-long movie is another story. Generally speaking, the film only covers the first half of the manga story, and thus giant chunks of the manga is cut out. And the plot of the movie was reconstructed to make it faster pace. The problem is, it's too fast. The story moves at a breakneck speed, and because of that, we have a lot of plot holes and confusing moments that no one will understand unless they read the manga. Now, an adaptation should stand out on its own. If you expect me to read the manga to understand a certain moment or subplot in a film, then the film adaptation fails in comparison. The plot of the film is incoherent, oftentimes jump cutting or fading to black at what feels like random, characters being introduced at random and die just as quickly, and none of the characters get nearly as much development as they did in the manga. With the exception of Tetsuo, who, to my knowledge, actually has quite a bit more character development than he did in the manga. Now, I'm not saying that the story and characters themselves are bad. It isn't. It's actually all quite fascinating. It's just that because of the movie's odd structure and pacing, it makes it very difficult to pay attention to what's happening around these characters. The story itself is fascinating because it's unlike any anime story I've seen. I love the cyberpunk setting of the film. Yeah, Bubblegum Crisis and Blade Runner both have cyberpunk-like settings in them, but never had it even presented in a way Akira has. It's a cyberpunk setting with almost mystical elements around it due to the emphasis of psychic powers that play a heavy role in the main story itself. It combines technology with fantasy in a unique, imaginative way. And I also like the kind of people that we actually get to see that actually live inside Neo-Tokyo, from the biker gangs to the juvenile delinquents to the radical religious fanatics that worship Akira like he's a deity. It goes to show, despite efforts into reconstructing Tokyo, there are still some twisted stuff out there. It also displays themes as how we as humans have the power to choose our destiny. We have the potential to make the future what we want it to be, which is very true to most of us who yearn for such a future of our own. It's a fascinating take on the theme of destiny, and that's what I find very remarkable about Akira as a whole. The characters aren't good or bad, as you would think they are, but rather shades of gray, as they all have faults and strengths. Kaida is somewhat honorable and valiant when it comes to his goals, but he comes off as somewhat a skirt chaser and a typical teenage delinquent. Tetsuo may be shown as ruthless and twisted and absolutely evil, but only because he was made that way by his peers picking on him all of his life, and you can't help but feel sympathy for him. The military commander may have a deep hatred for Neo-Tokyo, yet he does indeed care about the people who live in it. While the psychic children try to stop Tetsuo on their own, they go to very desperate and cruel means in doing so by using humans as their puppets. Though despite my praise for the characters, they are handled poorly in this film. Kaida is the main character of the story, but it seems to me that Tetsuo outshines him in this movie, since we know more about him than we ever did with Kaida. And I just don't get that. Why outshine your main character? I don't think you should ever do that unless there is a reason to. Not to mention, some characters who play rather big roles in the manga take a backseat compared to main characters, so they have little contributions to the story itself. Overall, while the story of Akira is massively entertaining, the awkward structure of the film and the extremely fast pacing hinders it from being a masterpiece when it comes to storytelling comparing it to its manga counterpart. Art and animation. I have no complaints when it comes to the visuals. Akira is simply stunning in terms of art and animation. Every cell in every scene is extremely detailed and handled with care. The animation is ridiculously smooth, far advanced for its time, and holds up amazingly well. Even compared to 90s anime like Cowboy Bebop and Escaflowne, I would go that far. The battles and carnage is simply dynamic and so lifelike. The opening bike sequence is one of the most memorable in anime. If you have a chance to watch this in HD or Blu-ray, do it. It is so damn worth it for such a beautifully animated film. Music. The soundtrack is very creative and original. It has a very eerie sound to it, with ancient sounding vocals combined with 80s style music. It gives the soundtrack its own identity. Voice acting. The Japanese version is top notch with some noticeable saves, like Nozomu Sasaki as Tetsuo. You may know him as Yusuke from Yu Yu Hakusho. Kei is voiced by Mami Koyama, who is known for voicing Irelie, the main character in Akira Toriyama's Dr. Slump. The 1988 English dub, from what I've seen, is very cheesy and at times hilarious. It's bad, but I qualify as a so bad it's good dub. Thankfully, the newer dub by Pioneer is far superior, because come on, you can't go wrong with Jeonnyeon Bosch as Kaida. So, do I think Akira is overrated? Oh yeah, definitely. Is it outright horrible? No. The fascinating story and characters kept me entertained and interested, and the outstanding visuals and soundtrack did not bore me nor did it irritate me. It was a very entertaining film overall, and I can see why so many people love this movie. I myself think it's a decent film. I do like it. So I can't call it a masterpiece since it is plagued with the story problems that I mentioned in the review. However, I do recommend watching Akira at least once, as it is still an incredible experience for those who aren't familiar with the film or in anime in general. Now, I will admit, the first time seeing this movie, my mind shattered to a million bizarre pieces. I had the same reaction as everyone else did when they would first see it. So like most anime we watched back in the day, try to watch it again years later, and that feeling of mind-blowing awesomeness just wasn't there anymore. Though despite that, I will give Akira credit, as it serves as a testimony to the popularity of anime in the West. Final score, 7 out of 10.